request for rentals to be appraised, and he's got 8 done, 8 appraisals and 1 inspection.
Any more questions or comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Herrera. CEO, the floor is once again yours to call your next cabinet head.
We've got Public Works with Larry kind of scheduled, but I don't see him here. Do we have a representative for Public Works? Okay, I guess not, but if your water's still running, I guess we're okay there. And your toilet's still flushing. Okay, then after that, then will be the cabinet head for the Crow Residential, Carl Littlau.
Oh, Mr. CEO. Thanks, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Secretary, members of the legislative branch, cabinet heads, and the community members. The second time I've been, no, this is the third time I've been before this body. The first time was with my first quarter report, and then the second time I was here to meet with the committee. No, fourth time. I met with the Natural Resource Infrastructure Committee, and then I came over with the Chairman Oakhout to provide a brief regarding Good Earth Lodges. So as Mr. Speaker said, you know, it's always welcoming here, and I encourage my colleagues in the cabinet to do show up here every once in a while and give this member a briefing, because it does make a big difference in our operations. As I stated in my report, I'm not going to read it to you. I know you guys probably already read a little bit of it, and I'm just going to paintbrush it and, you know, spend a little bit more time and answering any questions. But I will tell you that this quarter, I spent the majority of my time conducting an internal review, I guess you want to call it audit, review, assessment of my operations at the Sauga Housing Authority, especially in regards to finances, because there's a lot of unanswered questions that are there regarding to money that was spent prior to the Oakhout administration and my tenure as the executive director. And as you can see on page 3 of my report, I have a budget report, and housing block grant that's awarded to the Sauga Authority is roughly about $3 million. And in October and November alone, as I reported before, there was $1.4 million spent in 2 months. That's half of my housing block grant. So that leaves me with very little financial resources to make much of a positive impact in regards to my programs. So what I've been doing is I've been cutting a lot of expenses and looking at how I can use my financial resources to make a big impact. So a lot of my time, my maintenance department has been working on the backlog of work orders that are pending. There were so many work orders that were out there that weren't done, and the money was spent still. So, you know, we're going back and looking at these work orders, checking with the tenants, and ensuring that they were completed. On paper, sometimes they are wrote that they're completed, but sometimes when we visit with the tenant, they weren't completed. So we're going back and making sure that was done, because that was actually a finding that HUD had in last year's audit report, that there isn't really a controlled system between the maintenance department and the occupancy department in regards to how work orders were being tracked and how they were being monitored and followed up on. So as you can see in this budget report, you know, I roughly spend a little bit over $100,000 every month. And a lot of that is, you know, payroll and then ordering of supplies and material. So, you know, right now I cross my fingers every day from that I'm able to make it to the end of the fiscal year. It's April, I gotta make it to September with roughly a little bit of $800K on budget. So, you know, I'm really tightening up my belt, as they would say. So, you know, that's something that I'm working on. But one of the challenges that I have as executive director of the Housing Authority is that I'm currently implementing an Indian housing plan that wasn't created by me or my staff or this administration. This housing plan was already implemented prior to us arriving, so, but I still have an obligation with our grant to fulfill this Indian housing plan. So those are some of the things I'm working on to fulfill this Indian housing plan, but next year's Indian housing plan will be myself, the administration, the infrastructure committee. You know, it's gonna be a team effort to where we all work together to draft the Indian housing plan that will benefit the Saugagan Nation equally and fairly. And so those are some of the things that I have going on. In the past, no one really knew how much money was generated through rentals. You know, I wanted to make sure that I report that as well. In the month of January, February, and March, you know, there's roughly a little over 21,000 revenue that came in from rental. And I'm doing analysis right now. I wanted to see the amount of rental money that came in prior to us coming to now, because I am starting to see an increase of folks wanting to make their payments, because in the past, they were in fear of they make their rental payments, where's that money gonna go to? How is it gonna be used? Who's it gonna go to? So now that I'm being a little bit more transparent and folks are getting to know me, they're starting to make their monthly rental, but that still is a big ongoing challenge. If you see on page 5, I have a spreadsheet of folks that are in non-compliant. I would say maybe 1/4 of my tenants are in non-compliance. And that non-compliance is hurting the Saugagan Housing Authority and the Crow Tribe in regards to acquiring more funding with our Indian housing block for in the future. So right now my team is being proactive. We're going out in the field and trying to meet with our tenants in hopes that they would begin to get themselves in compliance so that the whole housing authority is in compliance, because that really affects our grant rating score. So those are some of the things that, you know, you want to look at. I know folks are always asking me about, you know, compliance issues. So, and there's 2 findings that were in last year's audit. One was there's no controlled system of monitoring work orders, and then the other one was that a lot of our rental units were not inspected, because well, that inspection is very important. So those are some of the things that my team is going out and doing our best, because there's tenants that don't want us inside their homes. Even though those low rentals belong to the housing authority, we still have a challenge, and you know, but we're being proactive. The more we educate our tenants about why those inspections are important, they're starting to, you know, cooperate with us a little bit. My construction team is right now working on 3 remodels, 2 in Lodgegrass and 1 here in Crow. We're spending a lot of time addressing the work order, because it's important to Chairman Oka that we put our elders and tribal members that need handicap accessible homes. It's important to his administration. So, you know, we've been installing a lot of handicap ramps, doing our best to make restrooms and showers ADA compliant. You know, those are some of the things that we're working on as well. But my hands are kind of tied back, because like I said, I have an Indian housing plan that was in place prior to me coming on board. I've been in Denver 3 times now. I'm in direct communication with our grants manager, Katie Starstovich and Bernard McHale, on a weekly basis. Last month, I was in Denver and I actually met with the HUD Regional Administrator for Native American Programs, Randy Akers. I personally visited with him a little bit. He understands my challenges, and he's working with me in terms of making the Saugagan Housing Authority the way it needs to be. And met with Senator C.J. Stewart one time in his committee here, and one of our goals is that I think we set a 1-year deadline. Is that what it was? To hopefully enact a housing ordinance that's updated to the current year, and that recognizes the current constitution. That's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a big milestone once we get it drafted and approved by this body and the chairman. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that. That's actually going to be, you know, a big highlight for the future of our housing programs. So we'll keep you posted in that. I'm planning on a listening session tour throughout the districts to begin to talk about housing issues, because housing is a big need on the reservation. We all know that. So I'm hoping that, you know, the legislature of that respective district will join me during that day once we get these scheduled. And our Secretary Notifer is gonna join me as well. And, you know, it's a listening session. We're gonna listen to the community. I'm gonna take some time to educate about why it's so important to be in compliance and to educate about my programs in hopes that, you know, the community will meet me halfway because it is a partnership. And so we're still planning on that. And, you know, it's gonna be a tough crowd. You know, like the Crow Tribal members are very skeptical of the housing authority just because in the past there was a big disconnect. No one knew what was going on. So I'm hoping that this will help me with my efforts, and it also helps, you know, the various legislatures be in touch with their constituents as well, that you guys are, you know, doing your duties within your respective elective responsibilities. Then my next program is Good Lodges program. You know, I put that program to a halt in the beginning of January because it was a program that was spending a lot of money and not getting a lot done. And it was a shame at the time because every day people ask me, how come those houses up on the hill aren't being completed? What's going on? Well, what happened was that they played politics with that subdivision, spent all the money in hiring, but they didn't get those houses done. You know, so we put it to a halt. I hired a new project manager, William Howe, been instrumental. And one of the objectives that I had is, I said, you know, Good Lodges program has the potential to be a model program that we can showcase to the rest of the country. And it's important to this chairman, this administration, you know, I want you to go back and review how we can make this program succeed and how it can be an energy efficient housing program. So we've been in touch with a firm out of, I think it's out of the South. They have expertise in compressed brick, and we're hoping that they would give us a different solution on how we can save money and still build houses using our own natural resources. And one thing that, you know, I'd be clear, we used to work with University of Colorado with their programming, but, you know, the more we thought about it, they weren't meeting our needs, and they weren't providing the oversight and expertise to make sure the compressed brick earth homes up on the top of the hill were up to par. So we decided to cut our ties with them because we felt like they had an opportunity to raise red flags to stop this program, but they didn't. They let it continue. We ended up having to demolish 2 houses that were built, and I had to come before this body to ask for additional $250,000, $550,000 just to demo and complete that row of houses. You know, that was probably the biggest challenges that I had in my tenure, that I had to come here and ask for money for a project that already had money. So, you know, but, you know, that's water underneath the bridge. Me, I'm an optimist. You know, I'm a go-getter, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring on this new firm by the name of, just one second. Let me ask my project, what's the name of that? Dwell Earth. And so we're gonna bring them on board next end of this month. Well, we're not bringing them on board, we're actually gonna invite them to give us a presentation with the officials and with Senator Stewart, and basically have them give us a presentation of what they have to offer and what kind of solutions they have, so we can, you know, continue this route. And they do meet our expectations. I'm planning on buying their brick making machine. It's a different style brick, and it's going to be a different design homes, but it's still going to have the same benefits that, you know, that was originally intended when they started this compressed brick earth. Home improvement program. You know, that was a work in itself because at one point it was an 80-hour club and that mentality was there, and that was the biggest challenge that I had, was filtering out basically personnel to where they actually wanted to get the job done. I remember, you know, having a personal action with an employee, and I said, what's going on? You're a good worker, you got the skills, why are you taking your time? She said, well, in the past, we usually take our time because when we finish a project, we get in trouble. I said, well, this is a new era. You know, that 80-hour mentality, that milking the job, as they would say, is done and over with because it's wasting resources of the Crow tribe. There's always going to be projects. Let's get them done. Let's move on to the next one. And that's the same route that we're going to take. And, you know, sometimes I get a backlash of I'm being too firm or too strict, but, you know, the Crow people deserve, you know, hardworking individuals, and that's our expectations. Here's a spreadsheet of the projects that are out there and the tenants. And, you know, right now we're closing out, you know, ICDB grant that was awarded about 1.5 years ago. So we're finishing those current projects that were already in place prior to us. And some of these contracts were actually awarded more than they should have been. So we're not going to use all that money for the project. We're trying to use whatever's left over and devote them to new projects. The chairman and I requested additional $250K, I believe, from the general fund to help elders and handicapped individuals, and that has become a big, you know, hit with our elders because our elders have a lot of needs. So we're hoping that, you know, it's not much, but at least we're doing our best to give them some services that they need that they normally can't afford on their fixed income. So in the future, we're hoping that we can devote more money towards our elders and our handicapped tribal members. And one of the things that I prioritized was, I always say with our elders is heat, electricity, water, and sewage. And those are my priorities with elders. If they have those needs, let's get on it. Let's find whatever resource that we can because, you know, they deserve every bit of, you know, basic needs than, you know, any of us. So those are where I'm at. That's my report in a nutshell. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, Senators? Organized Senator Stewart.
I just want, not necessarily a question, I just want to notify the Legislative Branch Committee Infrastructure that we are planning a sit down with the Salish Kootenai Housing Authority in the near future here, possibly in May. But April was completely full because of the April session and different things that are going on. So we're gonna be getting up that way here soon. So and that's all pertaining to the new ordinance that's coming into play. That some people ask me, how come you want to go with a new ordinance? We're Crows, those are Salish Kootenays, but it's not necessarily we're not going to be doing what they're doing. We want to see how they're making it work, because basically right now you got a housing ordinance that was never amended since 1977, established in the early 50s, and it's you can't be doing something over and over again expecting the same result or different results. You know, it's just going to be it's organized chaos, and we need to get away from it.
The floor organized Senator goes ahead.
Mr. Speaker, Secretary, and Cabinet Head Directors, CEO. My question is, when you went to, what is it, the 1.3 million was supposed to pay back, what was the result of that? Are we paying all that 1.3 million back, or are we paying some of it back? Remember you going to Denver?
What the follow-up was question is regarding to the 1.3 million ARA money that was originally awarded to fulfill the houses up on top. And the administrator I had doesn't want to penalize us. And she's still giving us the opportunity to do our end and close out that grant. And that was one of the reasons why the chairman and I came over to request for additional monies that weren't budgeted so we can finish that row of houses and get it right. And once we close that out, you know, that contract and grant will be closed out. So, but a lot of that is all communication between my office, the chairman's office, and HUD. One of the things that was highlighted when I was at Denver was the administrator said, I've been with the Crow tribe, or I've been administrator for 5 years now, and the previous executive director only visited with me twice. And that's within, you know, that tenure. So, and I've been over there 3 or 4 times now. So it's all communication, just like any other business partnership.
Okay, before we organize the Secretary of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess my question is, in regards to these units that are being conveyed, I realize policies change and that you're new to your office, but in the past, I used to work back at the Housing Authority back in the 90s. And during that time, before a unit was conveyed to the homeowner, they had to bring it up to standard. And is that policy still there, or has that been abolished and revised? And is there a new process once they're conveyed, or, that's my question.
You are correct on that, and it all basically comes down to what goes in that Indian housing plan for that following fiscal year. And that's something that I want to bring back, because there's these folks that are doing their best to be in compliant, make their rent, and then we convey that unit. We should do our part and say, hey, you did your part. We want to turn the title over to you. We'll remodel your house so that you can enjoy it for another 20 years. So those are some of the things that I will be placing in my Indian housing plan, that when we do convey units, that we'll do our best to rehab them and make them up to better standard.
Okay, I realize that your budget is limited, and you're trying to work with the budget that was handed to you. But like in the future, so that is going to be a policy. So what about, once you get that started, what about these other ones that you conveyed like this year? Would you be able to go back to those, or would that not be allowed within your housing plan?
We can't retroactive any resources to something that's already been conveyed. So when we know a unit's gonna be conveyed and it's scheduled to be conveyed, we have to do any rehab work or any services to that unit before it's actually conveyed. Because once it's conveyed, the housing authority has no jurisdiction over that unit. So, those are some of the things that we have to do before we actually put in conveyance.
I guess this is more of a personal question, because in regards to my mother's unit, my brother has it in his name, but there's a lot of repairs that need to be done to bring it up to standard, and then they're asking it to be conveyed now so they can go to HIP. But I was a HIP director at one time, and I realized, like I said, maybe they changed. Before, in a HIP project could not remodel a housing project, because that housing project already received federal monies, so therefore they were ineligible. But I see in the HIP program, there's a lot of housing units being remodeled, so I was just kind of curious about that.
Well, if it hasn't been conveyed, we can schedule those in. And it's kind of catch-22, because there's folks that don't want to get their houses conveyed because they receive services and possibly a remodel. But once they're conveyed, then we do refer them back to the HIP program. So sometimes I get caught in between a hard and rock place, because I want to provide services, but my hands are tied behind policies from the federal government or whatever federal program that may be. But if it hasn't been conveyed, let's visit. Those are some things that I want to hear about, so that way if I have resources, I can get those scheduled in.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to corner you or anything, but because I realized that your position is new and you've inherited a lot of problems, and I was just, wanting that to be made aware. I hope.
All right, any more questions or comments for organized Senator Not Afraid, Lodgewell District?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Chiluk, Carl, thank you very much. Mr. Littlewell, you mentioned on page 5 that there's a spreadsheet with reference to those that are not compliant. What is your short-term and long-term plan to bring these folks into compliance so that the Crow tribe as a whole can benefit?
Well, the first portion is educating why it's so important to be compliant and how it benefits the whole program. I met a couple of tenants, and I said, even if you make a $25 payment and do your recertification and verify who's all living in that house, that makes a big difference. And then it's like, oh wow, is that all you needed? So we're trying to work with tenants, whatever their monthly rent is, if they can't make that, we'll meet you halfway. We're not out there to throw you to the curb, but And hopefully these listening sessions will make a big difference, because when you have the supporting of the elected officials, the legislative body, and the community, these tenants are, I am hoping that they will come to the conclusion like, hey, Baywatch, like, we have a home to live in, you know, we should do our part, you know, because, you know, if the housing authority did their job in the past, it won't turn into such a welfare program. Basically, that's what it is. Kind of we're enabling them, but you know, we stick to our guns. I'm hoping that they do want to get in compliance, and hopefully 2 years down the road, if they're not working with us, you know, it's gonna have to come to evictions. You know, that's something that no one wants to go to. I don't want to go towards that way, and no one wants to be kicked out. But if they're not doing their part, you know, what kind of message are we sending to? So, you know, and I don't want to go that route. I'm in a position where I just want to educate. I'll meet you halfway, and we'll talk about how we can come to a compromise. But because it's unfair to those tenants that are making their rent, that are getting recertified, and that are doing their part and trying to pay off their homes. So, you know, that's kind of where I stand.
Just a comment, Mr. Speaker. What Tyler Carl, I mean, the thing is if we were not on the Crow Indian Reservation, if you're not paying rent, they'll give you a 3-day notice. After that, they serve you, and within 15 days, there's a hearing. And then there's usually a court order issued within that 15 days, and you're out the door because the sheriff starts hauling your stuff out onto the street. In the spirit of Kenneth Rilbert, I've heard him speak before. Quite impressive. I don't know if he knows that or not. I mean, if we're talking about our future generations, if we're talking about accountability and transparency for the whole Crow Nation, we have to come into compliance. I mean, I'm glad that educating folks is important. Yes, indeed. Knocking on their doors, letting them know, hey, this is what you got to do to come into compliance. But for the whole Crow tribe to benefit, eventually, we're going to have to move forward. We're going to have to implement policy that if a person doesn't want to cooperate, I mean, we have to move them out. Because there's plenty of folks out here that want to pay rent. There's plenty of folks out here that want to become homeowners, that have decent credit or are working at repairing their credit. I'm one of those folks. I'm working on repairing my credit from student loans or medical bills, but I have to remain proactive if I want to benefit my family for the future. I mean, the example starts within, and with all that said, I want to thank you, Mr. Little Owl, for ending the tradition of the 80-hour club. That tradition doesn't belong within any administration. That tradition doesn't belong within any business structure. Otherwise, we don't move forward. With that, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Little.
I'll conclude by, I forget to mention one thing. I was in communication and collaboration with the USDA Rural Development in conjunction with the Native American Development Council out of Billings. And one of the things that, you know, I said in my first quarterly report, that we can't be solely focused on HUD money. There's other money out there. So with the USDA Rural Development, you know, they want to work with us. And when I first started conversations with them, I think they said like 5 houses. And I met with them 2 or 3 times. The chairman and I met with them, and we got them up to 20 houses. Now their grants, you know, possibly $3.5 million grant. And one of the things that we're doing now is on April 18th, you know, we're having a housing fair at the college to begin to talk about how you can be qualified for this program, in hopes that, you know, we can begin to utilize the money that they want to work with us. So, you know, those are some things that I'm working at. I just don't want to be solely narrow vision on HUD money as well. So,
I have a question.
Floor organizes Senator Other Medicine of the Reno District.
Thank you, Speaker, members, Cabinet Head, on these accomplishments on page 1. under BI 638 funds. Can you explain that?
Which page is that?
It's the second to the last page.
On the HIP program?
Yeah.
Well, there's three sources of funding that the HIP program has. The ICDB grant out of HUD, and then you have the BIA 638 contract funds that with the BIA HIP program. So those are two separate sources of money that we have with HIP, and then also the general fund money from the co-trip that, you know, that we requested specifically for elders.
So that one there, is it supposed to help like people that are not under housing, or how do you determine funding for that?
Those two sources of federal funds, the ICDB grant and the BIA money, those are specifically for non-HUD homeowners. And those are kind of under stricter restrictions regarding to your income. And you know, if you're high income, you usually don't qualify for that, and which makes it a challenge because a lot of our co-tribal members sit on borderline between making ends meet to being over their threshold, and it's a challenge. So, but those are policies that were in place from those two agencies. So.
Any more questions or comments? If not, thank you. Mr. CEO, your next cabinet head.
Next presenter will be Marlon Passes, Cabinet Head for the Finance Department.
So that. Na kukala iwasagu komeiru reraku. Transparency. I guess the previous administration never hardly reported the financials to the legislators. So back in December, I verbally mentioned that I will report to the legislators on a monthly basis. And I have been bringing in those the financial and the revenue report. And I think it was last week I bought the updated ones for March. Hey, my goal as the finance man again is the previous administration spent $1,080,000 ending September 30th. That's a lot of money to be spent. And my personal goal is in working in conjunction with you, with the legislators, the executive branch, is to prove a point that we as a team can put this budget in a black come September 30th. That's my ultimate goal. I've mentioned it over and over. And as of March 31st, we spent $11,417,833.41. Leaving us with a balance of $13,478,032. And budget could add $24,895,866. It went from 22 million to 24 based on you guys the approval of the Big Meadow project. But anyway, that's my ultimate goal come September 30th. And Code Tenant, when the numbers are final, I'm hoping that the elected administration will put out a press release indicating to the people that all that money that we spent, the previous administration, how did they manage to do it? How did they manage to stay in a block? Is my ultimate goal. And data as far as the previous administration, we are currently auditing that October 1st, 2011 to 9/30/12. So once that audit is done, we have till September 30th to complete that audit, and they are in there as I speak, the auditors from Josephine for the previous administration's audit. And then, as when we took over, there's a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of cleanup that we have to do, as Carl mentioned. There's a lot of unfinished projects that we're trying to finish up again. And I hate to use this term, but we have to double pay. Some areas, the government gave us $20 to buy a calculator. We didn't buy the calculator. No, we had to come in and rebuy another calculator with our current money again. And it's something that we're trying to put back into track and get those projects done. And if you guys also saw CJ's letter, going good earth, Fisher, he contract get him, Bagoy. I was gonna send a standstill because of some questions being asked. So the actor item, law item, CJ had brought up, Jay's probably aware of that law. It is a good advocate. And we have approximately 820 employees to deal with the tribe. And, I'm trying my best to turn this thing around, what has happened in the past. So it's a very difficult task, but I'm doing the best I can. But I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. If you guys have any questions,
Any questions, senators? Floor organized, Senator goes ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, and members of the body, Executive Branch, Cabinet Heads, Directors. Marlon Itchiaga, and I appreciate your reports and taking over as the Finance Director. Itchiaga, and I baga, again, Mako, Burumaji, and I have Zitchio. Again, my zad, you stam, again, a positive change. Was sick, this is for the ideals, but Bajwa got big and itching, and I couldn't eat a card for his you. You was asked I did, I argue, CPA, get a cooker, Kristen Johnson, could have connected, just get up.
Part-time, who does it? Carla McCatherine was still could have tidy, Jack.
You all could, I get fed out and Bob the middle, she looked like your mouth along. Go there. She was back there, who pay with your army? I can go there, walk along. And that, yeah, got sued, they were chat, that could go to get and I want to go there, no speaker, they manual still. And don't come but she would say it, but you got Javier, who they say that. I don't know, I say, I don't know, they eat, say, you know. Yeah, but the cut was still made. I don't go Kristen Johnston, I go make that. It's a tape, the buckle watch, I like a man in his suit. My suit got the gear, one with the sugar game. I got tired of you. Today saw.
Remember that's on live shoot.
Carla was old.
Well, the only thing that I could tell her was, don't repeat what happened in the past, Buck. Just be real careful and stay in communication with the elected officials and the legislators, and things will be okay. Just keep that open accountability open. If you have any questions, email, whatever. Just stay in touch with them, Korea. At this point, she's managing pretty good.
Do we have any more questions or comments? If not, thank you.
Oh, it's you.
Mr. CEO, your next cabinet head.
Next report will be from Henry Rice, a horse cabinet head for the Caroline Security. Oh, Speaker, Secretary, members of the body, cabinet heads, how the goes it? Cabinet head, good week for Homeland Security. And it's a bit of a challenge for me. So again, look at budget big yesterday. The only budget I have is through DES. Public safety, you always get it. It just covers the director. Employees, personnel, need good book. Like I said again, budget better the best thing to do is look for grants, and grants don't come overnight either. Again, me guy, they can't start grant again, look to go to the thing about it is, like I said, grants take up to a year, maybe more. And with less money I have, with less personnel I have. I think look at flow chart, bacon. I got planning and logistics. Dispatch, I only got 2 personnel. Public safety, William Fausto, director. I got DES, I got Clinton House, some other medicine. They got one more. Bacon, I'm trying to get a person on board. They're search and rescue. There's no funding right now. Structure fire, Rachel Stewart, supervisor. Gonna get crew. Now we got Joe Heath, Mitch Laporte, and Farah Tobacco, and custodian. Alfred Watts. So. That's what I'm faced with. Structure fire, important. That gosh, it's a necessity. Communities that have to protect the people. Funding made could I hear you got Kawaga said, how am I going to answer that? How come you didn't give me the funding? How come you didn't give me the equipment? How come you didn't give me the personnel I need? Yet I'm going to get the blame. That's what I'm faced with. Report that deal with. That's what I'm faced with. We're continuing to move, even though less help there is that we're doing the best we can to meet what needs to be done. We got to tell you that Mama, hey, we're gonna get out there. You director of that Clinton House, whatever I need, and that personnel, the few personnel I have, will go out there and fight that fire. Like I said, down the road, I see a better future. A job to protect the Crow people. Each community, law enforcement, public safety, MOU, I don't agree with the MOU. Law enforcement, each district, you see that, especially Wapo, Wyola. They tend to forget about them small towns. Say next to Wahame. How do we protect them? That's what I'm looking at. Grants don't come overnight. Personnel, that's what I'm looking at. Then meanwhile, like I said, then some of the departments I'm at a standstill because of lack of personnel. Now we can bring that up. They I got an DES grants to them. I don't know still deals to give me how much. So I got grants with Baladu. So she reported that Homeland Security grant that they got the hobby. So that's looking good, and there'll be 5 personnel for DES. And then on the brighter side, DES 5 ATVs that we shoot, 2 snowmobiles. And what's up, so any emergencies, like I said, it was a room, at least equipment mall, we're starting to build that up. And na personnel, tayo siya Goma Silence. Down the road, like I said, it's a challenge for me. Libate. Oh guys, down the road, maybe a few months down the road, now departments guys could change the goose, they got 7 generators, set Bluetooth. First 2, first one multi. Colima, second one to that prior community center. Everything's paid for. Watch the what? Servicing the whole works. Ibishla, Senex, the tribal administration. Keep the going. And now, the tribal administration, I'll get old generators, don't call it. Once we take that out, Black Rock State. Tajas. De la Huelva Community Center. And one more, we're still thinking about it. Down in generator stage, it's already been paid for through the state. Mas choda, maintenance, hook up with that, bas choda, and the chick believes you. There's Helen Expoma, one walk. State. State was a top white size. I get real about that. I'm just doing the best I can with what I got right now, and staff back. Mommy they'll be out there with me. And go age. Questions they do later.
Any questions? Floor organizes, Senator goes ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, members of the body, Cabinet Head, CEO, Directors. This is a home for that generator. Is I got the community center there, but this is a home for that generator on behalf of the community. I know that you need more money, and we're here to help you out.
Goes up, what I'm looking at right now, the generator today was big enough. I was hoping that we can light up that housing, I think we can do that. And Kodaji, I look into it, and that generator can light up the community head. Nah, Balu's Graz, at least you'll have your home, you'll have running water and electricity always.
Any more questions or comments? Floor organized, Senator Not Afraid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Lodge Grass needs a generator. I just thought I'd throw that comment out there. Ahoo.
You'll get one.
All right, any more questions or comments? If not, thank you. Mr. CEO, your next cabinet head. I believe we're down to the last 2 now, am I correct?
Next will be Jackie Stewart, Cabinet Head for Health and Human Services.
Good afternoon. senators, cabinet heads, CEO, and my one peer, Janice. In January, gonna March, kasi waliwas chigash tada chikina programs go to dishi the 20 year under Health and Human Services. December, I'm going every week back and forth. Go JJ. They take and put senior citizens under personnel and you home care aid. Go me made you. Can go the following week. About can home care group take. You got the catch. All kaji and by the end of January, you kala. You senior citizens kala personnel go gaduk, which is fine with me. Going mid February, kita go is home care taught Kugaduk, and the last that I heard, Dish pretty on top, Kugajik, and programs gonna wash the guide. These people that are in this helping profession have done a lot of good work. Bagushigasu. And transportation with the medical issues. 23 dialysis patients Chirigas Kawaashis Kalgon driver Chilag in a patient Kunalak dialysis Salag Oliat regular 8 to 5 hours and they're dedicated, committed Koduk, and recently January, the end of January, again, Wyola Gon Bigish the God of Michiru Pig, and Lodgegrass, Suguma Jimmy came substance abuse, the MSPI, Mass Suicide Prevention Initiative, program Kodak B. And then again, social services, Doug, in the community, Gorekstad, schools, Gorekstad, emotional support, Korajid, groups, they were there for the families and the students. And then 2 weeks later, he St. the Braid, you hold him, Kodak, him again, and in Malis Kawash, Ishtag, Bagoksuk, and Wash the guide, and then since then, Londa Simpson, MSPI director, she started the end of February. Because of the recent suicides, activities community awareness, she's right on top of that. And in diabetes outreach workers, blood pressure, blood glucose screenings, and activities, Doug, Malaysia, blood pressure, and they're keeping track of that. And since January to the end of March, the diabetes outreach workers did 973 blood pressure and blood glucose screenings. Water aerobics, they did 167 presentations, home visits, could involved, could guide with their patients and clients. In a substance abuse, in January, mid-January, for treatment. September through January, Director Alid. And in treatment, could have gosh, they can take care of mid-January, and other resources, could educate, big 7 Hills, Set Free Church Program, Malaya Jogi, Goidiuk, and make Sheridan, Konawadam, open up Kodak, Riverton, Kohodam, Kolak, 2-month program, Kodakim, use Grahaduk. And since January to now, they had sent 83 to residential treatment. And they were using 7 Hills now set free, and then they were sending them to South Dakota and in a budget all yes states soon Ishpala Hawaii. Agna 7 Hills go December Goresh go need Mark Railbird. Well, Komahilato. In January, yeah, going to the end of March, they've had 31 clients that have gone through their program and have completed. In the ATR, Access to Recovery Aid, it's a program that's funded through tribal leaders. And getting clients go there in the substance abuse programs, services could need to help them to maintain their sobriety. They're there to rent out to cheap car repair, Baba Luigi, Kushil, and Carla Bishop is the coordinator. I make March 20th, Kodesh, they had an audit on her program, and it was a clean audit, and they complimented the tribe on how well of a job that Carla has done, and then the services that were provided for substance abuse clients. About 4 years ago, what I shoot DUI classes go start cookbook at substance abuse and training Kerewak. We did what we were trained to do. Kalgonik State Jackie Jan he do Ballet Cook. Ballet Cool, Ballet Lachta when we advertised our DUI program, $25 good book because our people are poor and they can't afford to pay $400 to take that ACT class in Hardin or Billings. Kalgon in Hardin, Daskavid, again, behavioral or mental health, because we were taking their business away from them. Kalgon in a state Kodeduk program all certified Gaduruk. They said that they would recognize our DUI program. This was before they got me out of there. And then just for the DUI program, Duk records ko de alagak to by Jim Ahuk. Kagom kamigyo sa January gade shakuk meeting you ko in the state ko kahui jahem wale taijip. She said that I agreed to have the whole program go under the state. That was a lie. And Kawina, I had a witness in my office when I had that conversation. Having the go resources, Bo is Evers, Lisa Evers, in state, could I give my I'm going to call her and see if she can advocate for us so that we can maintain that program and that it's recognized by the state. In Noviago, she met with us on getting third-party billing, and again, held the Komahina Kalahoa training Kadelog. And once we get that in place, then substance abuse clients, Goodish, we can bill them, we can get revenue for that, and then in diabetes programs, Godajilik, we can generate income through that. And March, Goodish, Guigan, the officials, Darren, the chairman, the secretary, the vice secretary, Todd Wilson, myself, and John March, Bobby de Hoda, Malechbuk, Billingstog, and Anna Sorrell, Whiting, Malechbuk, we picked her up there, Galgon Park, Spug, 107. Committee go there, we stopped there, and Mukolaja was introduced Kodakadum, Kalgun, Hidden community members, Kodak, Gaitis, Anikawi, the Kado, Hohoa, Chihuahua, Kagumbela, per clinic, Kukte, tour, go back, then Mark Kagik, no Crow, hospital, go Kopu, him, Kobe, Hidden, Agbahide, Birugia. Kusichide de dum iu kaguk and amala chustau hamaluk ishtu kovia, ishtu wachach tajik, balewach, balewach, bahig. Training, kodegyo kashto, get in under the ones that work under Health and Human Services. They're well trained for the positions that they have, and Haushvale is so I that but big at Biho Salevi did and budget bailet tick. Be what Chesajiketa. I am enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm learning a lot in this process. And Helene, I wanted to acknowledge the workers under the health program. Social Services Director, good day, Willie Plainfeather, in March, they had Indian Child Welfare Act training. I saw teamwork. It was professionally done by word around. They all pulled together to have this workshop running. And then Hilage Gilwillie, she's nominated for the Native American Social Services Association President. And Hoolish, Golden Great Falls meeting, he should be there by now to accept that nomination. And those of you that have been over to the tribal building, west entrance, go there. Left hand side hallway, get them call it Skid Row. Go just the first door on the left, office big wall. Go there. Organizational chart. Go there. Music and Buddy Benz come in color. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, make sure you stop by and look at my wall of fame. And suicide, Kodaje, Jamie D. Crane, Mary Gayton, Randine Fitzpatrick, and Ada Benz, good in schools, Kodak Stau. Sashkushek Stag, Iguayo, and Guachkas. And community cleanup, Kodaj News, Ita Kodak Ruyadachki. I was supposed to go to a meeting in Billings, retreat. On the board. The way I believed was, community wish important to clean it up. I felt that I should be there cleaning up because we litter good body. And I didn't go to the meeting in Billings, but I stayed behind to be a part of that crew that helped clean our community. And the social services, family preservation, provided 20 cases of water for that. Carla Bishop, Londa Simpson, could the next community cleanups, could they volunteered to provide fruit and water. And I can go on and on. All day, Leanne Johnson, Kuha liaison, she's the IHS liaison. She's been really helpful to me. She's got a lot of knowledge because she worked in that program years before I did. Information Todd Wilson, he's the health director. And he's been helpful in attending meetings with IHS, area office, and Crow IHS. Then diabetes, so he's knowledgeable in that field. And in that training cadet, like I said, the people that are working in the health programs are all well trained. Have any questions?
Any questions or comments, senators? Floor organized senator goes ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, members of the body, and Jacqueline, you, Willie Plankton, what was he nominated for?
National, just like your, look at my notes. Social Workers, Native American Social Workers Association, Vice President.
The Vice President?
Of the association.
Oh, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Floor organizes, Senator Kyle runs.
Oh, thank you, Speaker, Secretary of the Body. Now, Jackie Hayes, 3 weeks ago, I went over to try to get a bill for suicide intervention. I went over to that gal's office and I asked her about if she had any information or anything to work on. She told me the previous administrator, whoever it was, didn't have much, or she took it. And based on that, okay, I'll try to get some more information. But that following Tuesday, they were going to have a talk in Billings, in Hardin, at the school, and go to the history. I didn't attend that. But I was still trying to gather information to pertain to the suicidal intervention to make a bill on it. Oh.
Wanda Simpson, Kogaraka MSPI coordinator, but I mean, she's a Kola Bali. In fact, reports got Korea Chijila and so they couldn't find anything. I didn't know the ball so good at the good side activities, Korea Shisha, Takashtik. And then in June, Coke College, University of Utah, Gomajimere Kajik social work, and he was a survivor, suicide survivor, Arnold Thomas, and senior, got the Kalagon, Korak College, Bukchi, Jawat Barachuka, Barachuka, Podek, Kalagon, Ichisai data, Ikigohwik, and Shaysag, Ichigurhut, Ishtaladek. And in Isagu disfigured Kodak in Ko Baje Ovitik in sometime this summer. With Ko Landish Itchishtik, she's doing a really good job.
Any more questions or comments? Senator Not Afraid of the Lodgegrass District.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Jacqueline Chigash, thank you very much for giving us a great report. I just have a request on behalf of the committee, Health and Human Services, Chairman Gadewi. And my request is just keep us in the loop on everything you do. If you meet with the state or the feds, keep us in the loop, because the committee, when we meet in the future, we'll hit the ground running. If legislation comes over here from the executive branch, and the committee is kept in the loop, and when something hits the floor, it's just a formality. So I just wanted to, I know you're busy, I know you're extremely busy. I can't imagine how overwhelming stuff is at times with the responsibilities that you have. But just keep us in the loop, and we're here to be part of your team.
Okay. All right.
I hope.
Any more questions or comments? If not, Mr. CEO, your last and final cabinet head. It's kind of ironic because this cabinet head had been wanting to give us his report since last Monday, first day of session. So he was the first one ready, but he's the last one giving a report on that.
That's for the last.
Yeah, we went by alphabetic order and W is last.
She used Birdie as first.
Okay.
And that's C, but the real bird is way back there, but she turns around and used the last name towards the fourth one.
Birdie had auditors in their office yet. But anyway, final report is Chinese white man, cabinet head, economic.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, distinguished Speaker of the House, Secretary of the House, the Honorable Leroy Sage, not afraid. You know, making this report, I know you guys are the ones that are the most important because you stayed here for the last. I'd like to thank you for staying here. Then the attorney, Jay Harris said, hurry up, we gotta go watch Superman. And Tough Harris, I told him if you were with the winning ticket, instead of, with the positive change, instead of winning ticket, you could have seen him every rally. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Jay. Anyway, economic development, as you see, I'm the cabinet head and my infrastructure is economic business, a business venture. Our director is Kenneth Rilbert and Hamley Rilbert is the planner. And we have Tim Falls down and William Peters. And I don't know where Willie came from, but he's the one that's heading Lower Ranch. So that should be part of Farm and Ranch. Farm and Ranch is mine, but we haven't even hired anybody over there yet. But hearing, I didn't recognize him without his cap, Mr. Herrera. I had to take a picture and send it to Phoenix so my boy could see Bokoshet Butch first time without a cap. And he says, how in the heck did you get him to take his cap off? But anyway, that's a long story. Then we got Multi, Parks and Rec, the director is Ross Whiteman, Adrian Bird is the supervisor at the Multi, we got tourism, Lark Paz. And our report is that we've been having meetings, we've been going to Helena. And Helena over there, the one thing that kind of got me, and I was telling Kennard and CJ was there too, is that the small business loan program, they're about ready to take that away from us. So we have to go to Helena again to meet with them and see if we have to find a new director or whatever, because I was going to go on. I was hoping the chairman was here so we could report that to him, so to see what was going on, because AJ Not Afraid was there with us, and it was kind of a situation. So do I report it to him, or am I going to get fired for it? Every time I try to do something, it's all politics, and I always get in trouble, so I kind of keep a low profile. But you know, in order not to lose it, I think we have to, Kennard and Hamley and myself should take it over on it. Because in the last year, they only had 2 loans out. And they're willing to give us more money, 500,000 more, but we're not even getting any loans out. So what have they been doing the last 4 years or so? But you know, that's one thing that I'm having a problem with. Another one is that we have a $50,000 grant for assessments on the reservation, and Hamley's taking care of that. We have one applicant right now that's going to do the assessment on the reservation. Then, with the help of Lucille, Jeannie, Vincent was there, and so was Senator Stewart. We was over at Vegas about last month, and a lady that had Res 2013, her name is Margot Gray Proctor. She's going to be here this Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, and she's going to make an assessment around the reservation, see what our needs are. It's going to help us get more grants to make the reservation generate more, like the C stores and so on. And it's kind of like a situation where we're not really sitting back, and without Hamley and Tim there and Kenner, you know, my job would be pretty hard, but they're the backbone of my work right there. They do all the work and everything for me, and I just sit back and act important. And they're doing a hell of a job.
Oh, thanks for your honesty.
You know, I'm always honest. You know that, Leroy. If I had an $80 ticket, I'd give it to you right now. But anyway, as the other thing is the bank. We're trying to build a bank, and Kenner's been working hard on that. So you guys made Tyler's talk, so I'm going to let Kenner talk for me. There you go, Kenner.
All right, floor recognizes Kenner Drover with Economic Development.
Hilaka hina economic development anakuluk. There's two schools of thought on the Croydon Reservation. One school is kind of socialistic in approach. Tribe, a tribal ranch, a tribal C-store, a tribal casino, and that school of thought has never worked. If you're in power, it's fine. There's monuments to failure in that approach. Carpet mills, that's tribally owned enterprise. It failed, it doesn't work. Sun Lodge and electronics. My goal is to reach this private sector, the people who are not going to be working for the government. That approach has got us to where we have the white guys have 99% of a $300 million a year enterprise, which is agriculture. There ain't no Crow Indians in that. That's renewable every year. There's 92,000 head of cattle on the Crow Indian Reservation. There's 102,000 acres of wheat on the Crow Indian Reservation. There's, I think, about 20,000 acres of sugar beets on the Crow Indian Reservation. That part of that economy is something that all the smartest Crow Indians cannot see. They want to bring Joe Cult over here and talk about nation building. Hell, that guy, all he's going to do is tell you to get more grants. What I want to see is for us to become a nation where free enterprise is flourishing. I want to see us in a situation where we do not need housing. I want to design and build my own home through funds that I can secure on my own.
Yeah.
This is my dream. I can see the thing here is that, and that's why you guys were here when we passed the banking in 2006. But the vision was unclear. Nobody wanted to see that vision. How many administrations? Nobody. But Darren said, by God, I see this. I'm beginning to understand the need for the private sector to become empowered so that we can develop a true economy. Economy updated. I don't care what the experts say. What kind of an economy we have when your dollar does not turn over within your community not one time. Payroll, from grants, contracts, whatever, it goes directly off the reservation into Hardin and the Billings economy. What we have here is a state economy on the Great Upsala Nation. It's like a transparent, go that cover, and I'm tired of Put Thompson and his food. I want to eat a Crow Indian's food who knows how to cook, not a short order cook. I want to be able to buy hay from a member of the Crow tribe who's putting up hay on the Crow Indian Reservation. I do not want to see white people continue to claim water on the Bighorn, the Little Bighorn, the Pryor, and the only way to do that and stop it is to empower the private sector. Grants and contracts will never get you there. We'll never get you there. It's 100 and some years of grants and contracts. Aragulu, we've lost almost 50% of the Crow-Indian Reservation. We've lost 99.9% of the control on the Crow-Indian Reservation, on agricultural lands. Here, Hinawamba, Hina administration, Kodesh, they're beginning to understand the need for a financial institute on the Crow-Indian Reservation and deal with it. In fact, as we speak, Darren is going to be in Los Angeles tomorrow, and he's going to sign that document that starts the process of the application to the 3 different entities of the United States government, the Federal Reserve System, the Comptroller of the Currency, and the FDIC. Dawi, we're starting. So it's historic. For me, I don't know whether I will continue in the capacity that I'm in, because where it's gone now is into the hands of the experts, the banking attorneys, the presidents. And what we're going to need now is the chairman is going to select a board, and the individuals on that board is going to be members of the Crow tribe who have business experience, who understand business. And Hiragawike Moshukiaja, I thought was going to be perfect sterling credit. Kodasak. If you have a decent credit history and you understand business, you can be on that board. Data, we need to select another board on what is called the LLC of the Crow tribe, who's going to be the holding company. And our investment is going to be $10 million. Hekta, in that 10 million Kodesh, Burustuluk, you're going to have $100 million on lending capacity the minute the bank opens the door. And that's Hiraga Absalo Gavihua. We're going to have perfect credit because we're owning this bank. Even though it's going to be under Federal Reserve System, and which is good, big because first of all, regulatory control belongs to the federal government, not Crow tribes, political parties, or no 80-hour club. It's going to be there and geared towards developing an economy. And Hiraga, what I've done in the last, I don't know, maybe how many years, in the economy, you saw, I've read up on, I don't know how many books, from The Secrets of the Temple about the Federal Reserve System to basic economics. And the main problem is that any community or area without credit will perish. The founding fathers of this country knew that. And us Crow Indians didn't know that. So what they did was they never made sure there was no credit for us. And Igyoda Hemashirish, the Dickey Kahlers, and all them people out there, they envied this land. They wanted this land. Who wants this land? Coal companies. That's who wanted. Hiraga Awakat. What I want to see is, instead of the housing authority running a work crew, I want to see a member of the Crow tribe who has the capability and the backing to build them homes for that HUD instead of in-house. In-house got the failure upon failure upon failure. But when it becomes a profit-driven business, that's when the good people come out. Kariu, we have to start being a real government. We have to start being a real nation. How in the heck can a nation be a nation being dependent on federal grants? You can't. And you're not going to ever flourish. There's no prosperity today. You walk out that door and you go up and down these streets of Crow Agency, Lodgegrass, and Wyola, and Pryor, all you see is poverty. But in between those communities, the ranchers flourish. The ranchers got the highest dollar return on their calves in the history of the United States at $1.40 a pound. He doesn't share with the landowner. He continues to pocket. He wants to give you $3 an acre for grazing. He wants to give you $25 an acre for sugar beets that's going to yield $2,000 an acre. The private economy is where the real power is. And this is why we need the bank. Kariu Karagos Channels, you have on all what the cock says, 7 o'clock, cut the ghost, eat a kuwak.
Oh, Ketter, I can report Karawada, Dita Dil, going legislators, senators. Market analysis for feasibility study on Crow tribal bottled water, Ganola him. Balak, income grenade, sheet, Hoganola, glass down night, Hooka, time, Hooka, Kamel Bush, Kamel, Dita Dil, going down night. The question stalls at it because those who want economic development, Turbinados beginning, I still had to meet with them.
Senator Hugs.
Okay, Hugs. Welcome me, Kutball Machan, bottled water, Hagig, Margos. Next week, you do a meeting, can you on Monday, can you the cabinets. Luke, Dr. Luke, enemy hunter. Monday, get a cabinets, welcome me, Kutball, Majig Margos. Time very sick Kutball, legislatures, a gun, the Yachmi Kutbook, a gun made book. Go ahead, CJ, yes, some questions that did eat much. Mel's ching. Oh.
All right, senators. One. I guess we have one question from Senator Goes Ahead.
Yeah, I'll get it. Dig it off. They didn't save the best for last. They overlooked them. There you go. I'll get you enough time. I'll get enough. Report dog. Kenner. I'll get report dog. This is long overdue, and I believe we, as the legislative branch and the executive branch, working together, that we want to get there where we are self-sustaining. I know that the federal government is going out of the Indian business. 2020, we're supposed to be self-sustaining. I gave grants, but they get out, again. So, there's the economic summit today. If you go to the YouTube, crowlegislativebranch.org, the chairman, Darren, spoke on the vision of the whole tribe. But they go again. So, here's that. In 2004, Daja Kamosaga, the late Andrew Odell, told at DC that they wanted to get out of the Indian business because of the Cobell, Eloise Cobell, with Hashem. They want to get out of the Indian business, but they want to go, they're shooting for 2020. So anyways, and the federal government wants the Crow tribe. There's going to be only 50 tribes in the end. I get casino tribes because of their natural resources, but we as have natural resources, there's going to be about 50 tribes by 2020. They're coming out of the Indian business. Andrew still call that. So last Friday at that economic summit, Darren, he was talking about the vision of the tribe, or he wants that direction the tribe we want to get to, and one of them is a bank. Oh.
There you go. Harold Stadigan said to you, last year you only got 8 years left. 7 years. A male should be self-sufficient. And you get a lot of Phoenix, when he's inclusive. Page, Arizona. Did a lot. That's the start of the Grand Canyon. Again, Walmart, Denny's, motels, all lobby. was Sonic, get them called Maverick gas stations. Every store and cafe you can think of, Kolu. And it's out in the middle of nowhere. Vision made on, Rapid City, Stargate, Battlefield, we should have something like that. Because, with the legislature's help and executive, we got to take the first step forward and take some risks and see that we can make it ourselves. Go guys.
Floor organizer, Senator Notifree.
Questions for CEO after you.
Okay, I'm done then.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for making me wait till the last and
Still live on internet, so.
For the attorney missing Superman. Oh, just kidding. What I said before, Jay.
All right, Mr. CEO. Any questions for the CEO? Floor organizer, Senator Notifree.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. I think it's Dr. Enemy Hunter. It's imperative that we hear from the tribe's legal department on current projects, lawsuits that may be pending concerning the tribe, legal issues that could affect the tribe. For example, I believe today the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments about the ICWA matter, where there's a non-Indian family that adopted a child that's federally enrolled, Bayakadaja. Did they file amicus briefs on the tribe's behalf in that matter, or on the child's behalf? Bayakadaja, I guess and then one of the things that I'm interested in as well is hearing from the tribal prosecutor. I know that the Robert Lafond received a temporary appointment, but we'd certainly love to hear from him on what we're doing about DUIs or partner family member assaults, or what are we doing to implement the new act by Congress concerning jurisdiction over non-Indians in domestic matters, domestic violence and Bayakadaja. I think it's important for this branch to be kept in that loop. I don't know if the speaker agrees or not, but
yes, I agree.
Yeah, having said that, I agree with you. What I'll do is I usually get weekly reports from all the cabinet heads. So henceforth, I've asked them before, but I didn't pursue it as much as I needed to, because it's been kind of silent as far as I'm concerned. See, so what I'll do is take that directive, I'll go ahead and take it over to the lawyers, and then I'll get their weekly reports also, because I too want to know what they're doing is representing the tribe. What cases have you been involved in? What cases have you won? This type of information is important, so I'll make sure I get that. I'll make it available to you on a weekly basis, and then I'll have them do the quarterly reports also, just like everybody else.
thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll see everybody tomorrow. I think tomorrow we'll order lunch.
What time?
At lunch. So that we can try to wrap it up. We have old business and then legislative branch committee reports tomorrow. So I believe that's all we have. So we can probably wrap things up tomorrow. We get started right away. What's that? A natural resource meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And then as we get a quorum, then we'll start right away and we'll eat lunch here and try to finish things up tomorrow. All right. All right, so we'll see you guys tomorrow.